Coming up on this Tuesday edition of Daybreak, South Korea exchanges artillery fire with North Korea after a military drill ordered by Pyongyang sees shells smash into South Korean waters. North Korea expresses a willingness to discuss its abductions of Japanese nationals as the two countries agree to carry on with their first governmental talks in well over a year. Plus, US Federal Reserve Chair Janet Yellen says the central bank's easy money policies aimed at boosting the US economy will be needed for some time to come. Daybreak begins now. Hello and thanks for joining us to our viewers here in Korea and around the world. It's 6 a.m. on Tuesday, April 1st here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom and you're tuned in to Daybreak. Our top story this morning. The two Koreas on Monday peppered each other's territorial waters with artillery shells in the latest show of inter-Korean tensions. A North Korean military drill saw nearly 100 shells smash into South Korean waters, which prompted a measured response from Seoul. Our Shin Se-min starts us off.
The two Koreas exchanged fire across their disputed Western Sea border on Monday. It began in the morning with North Korean live fire drills near the northern limit line. South Korea's Joint Chief of Staff said North Korea fired some 500 artillery shells in the waters north of the northern limit line, and nearly 100 of those fell in South Korean waters near Baengnyeongdo Island, some more than 3 kilometers south of the border. South Korean forces immediately retaliated, firing some 300 artillery shells across the NLL with K-9 self-propelled howitzers. They also dispatched F-15K fighter jets to the area. Thousands of residents on Baengnyeongdo Island who were forced to take to shelter during the 3 hours of artillery exchanges have since returned to their homes. The northern limit line is a disputed maritime border off the western coast of the Korean peninsula, where several skirmishes have taken place over the years, including the shelling of Yeonpyeongdo Island in 2010. Earlier Monday morning, the North Command of the Korean People's Army had faxed South Korean Navy's Second Fleet announcing the live fire drills, the first time it's informed the South of the exercise ahead of time. The South Korean government interpreted the announcement itself as a threat with hostile intentions. Seoul's ministry said the military will be closely working with the United States and will be monitoring for more possible provocations. South Korea's military has activated crisis management operations and already deployed naval convoys near the maritime border to cope with any possible contingency. The Standing Committee of South Korea's National Security Council gathered for an emergency meeting Monday evening to discuss the North's motives behind its latest provocations. North Korea announced it was merely conducting a regular drill within its own territory. The committee talked about the possibility of Pyongyang's further provocations and Seoul's plan for a strong and firm response when needed. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Now, while North Korea was holding its live fire drills very close to the inter-Korean border Monday, the armed forces of South Korea and the United States were busy holding the largest amphibious landing drill the Korean peninsula has seen in 20 years, our Kim Hyun-bin reports from the southeastern city of Pohang.
U.S. and South Korean Marines blaze across the water to secure the shoreline and their positions on Korea's southeastern coast. The Marines are here for the joint South Korea-U.S. amphibious landing exercise, dubbed Double Dragon, which started on March 27th and runs through April 7th. As part of the annual Fall Eagle drills between the two allies.
Through this joint exercise, Korea and U.S. forces are working as one to suppress war with our might while enhancing our interoperability.
This is the largest amphibious landing drill in South Korea in 2 decades, with over 12,500 U.S. and South Korean forces taking part. The 3rd Marines Expeditionary Brigade from Okinawa is here, along with 22 Osprey multi-mission aircraft, 13 naval vessels, and others. The Expeditionary Brigade played an active role in the Iraq War. And if a conflict were to break out on the peninsula, they'll be among the first to arrive.
Both the people of South Korea and the citizens of the United States ought to rest assured that their military is taking their missions very serious, that we're training as hard as we can. We're trying to do this in the most economical fashion that we can.
The Double Dragon drill seeks to enhance interoperability and working relationships between the two militaries across a range of operations, from disaster relief to complex expeditionary operations.
North Korea has condemned the drills, calling them a rehearsal for an invasion. Some experts said given the level of anger, it is highly likely that Pyongyang will conduct a ballistic missile launch or a fourth nuclear test before the drill is over on April 7th. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News, Pohang.
North Korea has slammed President Park's reunification speech, which he delivered last week during a state visit to Germany. In a much-anticipated speech in Dresden last Friday, President Park proposed 3 ways to bring the two Koreas together: increasing humanitarian aid, holding more family reunions with North Korea, and assisting in North Korea's infrastructure projects. North Korea's state-run Korea Central News Agency on Monday condemned her remarks on the country's economic difficulties and hungry children in the country. It said the reality of life in North Korea had been distorted by lies uttered by defectors and false information from South Korea's spy agency. Monday's report marked the first time North Korea has commented on the president's reunification initiative. Now, North Korea is reportedly open to discussing its abduction of Japanese nationals over 3 decades ago. That's based on a remark made to Japan's Kyodo News from Junichi Ihara, the head of the Japanese delegation that met with North Korean officials in high-level talks over the past 2 days. Ihara said North Korea didn't reject Tokyo's demand for an investigation into the whereabouts of hundreds of Japanese nationals who were allegedly abducted by Pyongyang in the 1970s and 80s. He also said he protested Pyongyang's recent provocations, including its threat to carry out a new form of nuclear test and its launch of medium-range ballistic missiles last week. The government-level talks between the two nations were the first in 16 months.
We start before the sun rises to bring you the latest stories out of Korea. We also lead the way with important global coverage. Stay on the pulse of what is happening with Daybreak.
The new head of the U.S. Federal Reserve, Janet Yellen, says the central bank's commitment to boosting the economy, especially the still struggling labor market, will be needed for some time to come. In her first public speech since becoming Fed chair 2 months ago, Yellen said slack in the job market showed the Fed's easy money policies were helping the U.S. economy, still struggling with the scars of the Great Recession. Her remarks signal that even after the Fed phases out its monthly bond purchases later this year, it has no plans to raise the key short-term rate anytime soon. Her remarks calmed investors, many of whom have grown anxious the Fed might raise short-term rates by mid-2015. Korea's central bank says it's keeping a close watch on low inflation trends and will respond accordingly if necessary. In its monetary policy report Monday, the Bank of Korea said it would manage its monetary policy to work toward bringing consumer prices back into its inflation target band of 2.5% to 3.5%. This as low oil and farm prices and free childcare programs fade out. The BOK forecasts the growth of consumer prices will pick up to 2.3% in 2014 from 1.3% gain seen in 2013. Consumer prices fell below the central bank's inflation target band for the 21st straight month in February. Now, it's been exactly 10 years since Korea's first ever free trade agreement came into effect. Korea's auto industry has benefited the most from the country's FTA, with Chile. The nation's farmers are less satisfied with the decade-old deal. Na Hyung-kyung reports.
The trade volume between Korea and Chile has jumped 4.5 times to more than $7 billion over the past 10 years. Exports grew from $500 million to $2.5 billion, while imports more than quadrupled to $4.7 billion, according to the Korea Customs Service. Given that Korea's overall trade volume increased about threefold in the same period, experts say the trade sector has without question benefited from the Korea-Chile FTA. Since 2004, Korea has entered into 9 free trade pacts with a total of 46 countries, and the nation's automobile industry remains the biggest beneficiary. But very real concerns linger over the impact on the nation's agricultural industry. In order to minimize the negative effects on the domestic agricultural sector, experts are calling for reforms in the market's retail structure.
For items that are dominant in the market, more open competition needs to be in place so that the consumers can reap the benefits. Korea's retail industry also tends to be monopolistic. Diverse retail channels will help products compete in a fairer manner.
Questions over whether the nation's small and mid-sized firms have seen any benefits also remain. A survey conducted by the Korea International Trade Association shows that although 60% of the nation's SMEs with sales of less than $9.3 million utilized the FTAs, nearly half felt that the trade deals had not helped them in any way. Trade officials have called for more detailed and customized information to be readily available to the SMEs so that they can strategize and pave themselves an easier path into the overseas market. Na Hyun-kyung, Arirang News.
2 Samsung Group companies are merging. The deal, which was announced on Monday, has Samsung SDI, the group's unit in charge of developing battery technologies, acquiring the group's textile firm, Seoul Industries. The merger will be finalized in July. When that's done, Samsung SDI will be one of the conglomerate's biggest business units with market capitalization of $9.3 billion and assets worth $14 billion. Samsung SDI has been developing display and parts technologies with a new emphasis on batteries since the year 2002. Seoul Industries has been involved in the fashion, chemical and electronic material industries since being founded in 1954. The ongoing legal feud between Samsung and Apple has begun in earnest. A second round of patent trials has kicked off in a California courtroom, this time with Apple seeking $2 billion from its Korean rival. Apple is expected to demand $40 for every smartphone device Samsung has sold since 2011 as compensation for its alleged infringement of iPhone features. Samsung is expected to ask for $22 million in damages from Apple for copying its technologies. Google, meanwhile, will make its first court appearance over its software in Samsung phones. Experts believe it could signal an even bigger patent clash between Google and Apple. The cities of Seoul and Beijing will sign an agreement this week to jointly tackle air pollution in Northeast Asia. The Seoul city government said Monday that Mayor Park Won-soon will ink the deal Thursday when he meets with Beijing Mayor Wang An-sun in the Chinese capital. The agreement says efforts to deal with air pollution should be undertaken regionally and both cities should cooperate closely on the issue. During his trip, Mayor Park will also visit China's first observatory that measures pollutants. Smog from China is a major source of air pollution on the Korean peninsula. Now, it's very widely well known that riding a motorcycle can be extremely dangerous, but a new eco-friendly two-wheeled vehicle has a special feature that actually makes it safer than most other things on the road. Our Son Jung-in reports.
This fully enclosed two-wheel vehicle is part motorcycle, part car, and virtually untippable, and it could soon be in your garage. Its most notable feature is it's able to balance itself and stay upright when fully stopped or even when being pulled by a rope tied to a moving truck. So in the event of a collision, the vehicle balances itself instead of falling over, giving the rider more protection. Daniel Kim, the Korean-American founder and CEO of Lit Motors, who came up with the design, says the secret lies in a special feature.
So if you're wondering how do you keep balanced, we have a patented technology. We use gyroscopes to actually keep the vehicle upright. So it makes it untippable. So you need a baby elephant to knock it over.
Safety is a key, but with a maximum speed of 160 kilometers per hour, it's also pretty speedy. The two-person vehicle is also electric and can go almost 320 kilometers on a 2-hour charge. Kim says the vehicle will be released within the year for a price of $24,000. 손정인, Arirang News.
Now, for a look at the international headlines we're following at this hour, we're going to connect live to our Eunice Kim, standing by at the news center. Good morning to you, Eunice.
And good morning to you, Mark. Let's begin with the latest on Ukraine. In a surprising move, Russia appears to have pulled back some of its troops, likely a battalion of some 500 men from its border with Ukraine. It is unclear whether this is the start of a pullback or a rotation of forces, believed to number now at about 40,000. German Chancellor Angela Merkel's office confirmed Russian President Vladimir Putin in a phone call informed her that he'd ordered a partial withdrawal of Russian troops in that tense border region. The move follows Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev's visit to Crimea with a delegation of government ministers Monday, which Kiev condemned as a crude violation of international rules. Medvedev was in Crimea to promise support to boost salaries and pensions and to improve infrastructure, including water lines and power supplies. Meanwhile, NATO foreign ministers are to meet in Brussels beginning on this Tuesday to discuss steps that can be taken to support Ukraine. What appeared to be a promising lead turned out to be a dead end. The 4 floating orange items spotted from the air, which matched the color of missing Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, was recovered Monday and were confirmed to be not plane parts, but fishing gear. Meanwhile, Malaysian authorities have revised the last words heard from the plane as "Good night, Malaysia 370," not "All right, good night," as previously reported. The Transport Ministry said forensic evidence would determine who spoke those final words. Flight 370 is believed to have disappeared over the Indian Ocean while en route to Beijing from Kuala Lumpur on March 8th. Over in France, President François Hollande has named a new prime minister, former Interior Minister Manuel Valls, after his party suffered bruising losses in Sunday's local elections. In a televised message to the nation, President Hollande said he acknowledged his government's failure to turn around the Eurozone's second largest economy. He also promised to cut labor charges for business and tax cuts to boost consumer spending. Prime Minister-designate Valls is expected to present a leaner government team before President Hollande heads to Brussels later this week. The ruling Socialist Party lost more than 150 major towns in Sunday's local elections, mostly to the opposition right, Front National. The United Nations highest court has ruled that Japan must halt its whaling program in the Southern Ocean around Antarctica after finding that it did not constitute scientific research as Tokyo had claimed. The legally binding decision came in a 12-4 judgment. The presiding judge said the research program was responsible for killing 3,600 minke whales and a number of fin whales since 2005 with limited scientific output. The court issued an immediate cancellation of all whaling permits under the program, a decision Japan said it would accept, albeit with disappointment. The case was brought to the International Court of Justice in 2010 by Australia, who said the program was commercial whaling in disguise.
And a good Tuesday morning to you all as we kick things off in the LPGA, where the world #1 LPGA golfer Park In-bi is set to lead a group of 4 South Korean golfers in July at the inaugural International Crown. With the international event taking place for the first time, 8 nations will battle it out, with top 4 ranked golfers from each nation coming together from July 24th to the 27th. And with Park In-bi leading a group that consists of 6th ranked Yoo So-yeon, 11th ranked Chen Ha-yeon, and 15th ranked Kim In-kyung, they hope to prove Korea's dominance in the LPGA. And shifting over to the major leagues, where the LA Dodgers and the San Diego Padres kicked off the U.S. opening day in the majors. And with Clayton Kershaw out, Hyun-jin took the mound looking for his 2nd win of the season. And what a brilliant game by the South Korean lefty as he pitches 7 innings, giving up just 3 hits, no runs, while striking out 7 Padres hitters. But the Dodgers offense gives him just 1 run to work on as Brian Wilson gives up 3 runs in the 8th inning, giving Lee Hyun-jin a no decision in the 3-1 loss to the Padres. And staying in baseball, but back here in the nation with the Lotte Giants and the Hanwha Eagles rained out this past Saturday. They made up that game on Monday. Of course, going into the game here, man on second, Kim Tae-gyun singles to center, and the Hanwha Eagles take an early 1-0 lead. Leading off the 4th inning, Chung Hyun-suk drives this one to deep right field, and there it goes, a solo shot. Makes it 2-0 Hanwha. But rally time for Lotte in the 6th inning, Kang Min-ho with a man on, and there it goes, back, got a 2-run shot, and it's tied 2-2. Next play, man on third, Moon Gyu-hyun, an RBI double to right, makes it 3-2 before Lotte scores 3 more times for a 6-2 lead. 7th inning this time up 7-2 with 2 men on. Chung-won sends this one to deep right center, a 2-run triple, and it's 9-2. Fast forwarding to the 8th inning, here he is once again, Kang Min-ho, this time to right field, 2nd one of the night, and a solo shot as the Lotte Giants crush the Hanwha Eagles 11-2. And now shifting over to Game 3 of the championship series between the GS Kartex and the IBK Altos in the Women's V-League. With the 2 teams even in the series, IBK jumps all over GS Kartex early in the match, taking the first 2 sets with ease, 25-18 and 25-18. But all of a sudden, GS Kartex steps off their defense, taking the next 2 sets, 25-15 and 25-22, forcing it to a 5th set. But with Karina Casio leading the way with 47 points and Kim Hee-jin adding 19 points on the night, IBK Altos takes the 5th set 15-9 and wins this match 3-2. And finishing things off with NCAA March Madness, and what a madness it was during the past few weeks. And after all that, we now have our final 4 schools. And while #1 seed Florida and #2 seed Wisconsin isn't much of a surprise heading into the Final 4, 7 seed UConn and 8 seed University of Kentucky proves that they are a tournament team as they look for the upset in the Final 4. Meanwhile, Florida will face off against UConn and Wisconsin will face off against Kentucky on April 5th. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Well, spring heat wave will continue to hit the country as the sun and warmer temperature is on the way for today. And here in Seoul, we'll see the temperatures hiking up to 22 degrees Celsius, a couple of degrees higher than yesterday. And we'll have a fair amount of sun to kick off the day, but as the day progresses, it will give way to clouds. And please note that mild and sunny weather we've been having, it actually increases the risk of drowsy driving. driving, and it's been reported that the related incidents occur most often between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. So please keep that in mind and be careful of drowsy driving. And after pleasant and mild forecasts in a row, we're going to see things cool down a good bit before the end of the week. With that in mind, let's take a closer look at the readings for today. The morning low in Seoul is starting out at 10, but afternoon high will soar to 22, while Daegu and Gwangju should get up to 23, and Busan should top out at 19. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like down on Jeju and Daejeon will peak to 19 and 22, and cold morning will turn to mild afternoon in Mount Kumgang, reaching up to 15. Well, that's all from me at this hour, and hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much, Jian. And those are the stories we have for you at this hour. Korea Today is coming up in about 30 minutes' time, and we'll be back at the same time tomorrow. Until then, goodbye.